Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for being here. I'm out of my element here, but it's exciting because you should do something that makes you nervous every day kind of thing. That's what I'm doing. Like public speaking is not something that I'm not used to, so it's not that. I work in tech. My name is Jennifer Huber. By day, I'm a wireless engineer. I work for a big IT consulting company. So me getting up in front of people and talking about technology, talking about Wi-Fi, talking about controllers, you know, all the stuff, the cabling, the magic that makes Wi-Fi work, that's easy. Going to a conference, giving a tech talk, that's easy. Getting up and talking about something that speaks deeply to the core of who I am, that's different. And that's what this is. So I've come to the Mind Body Expo a couple of times, and my takeaway was that there needed to be more people here actually talking about things that link your body with your mind that don't involve you buying something. That was my takeaway. So I said, Jennifer, you have to be the change you want to see. So I bought a table, and I'm here to talk about yoga and meditation. I'm not advancing my slides. So this is me, wireless engineer. I've got some high-ranking certifications in the wireless industry, certified wireless engineer, number 51. I've been doing this since like 2003. I've been doing Wi-Fi. I've been a practicing yogi for a short 7 years by comparison. And my brief story about how yoga found me was I was a runner living in Austin, Texas, and I didn't know yoga from a hole in the ground, didn't know anything about it. I took my home Pilates mat, the big squishy ones that we have to do home workouts on. I took that to the studio, didn't know it was a heated studio, didn't know that I was going to be sweating buckets. The mat's stretching, it's squeaking, it's making all kinds of, it's fighting me the entire time. And at the end, I was like, yo, I don't know what that was that just happened, but I'm coming back again. And the space of time that I had on the mat, the 75 minutes, the 90-minute classes where the teacher would be speaking to the simple truths of life and asking me to look deeper, dig deeper, try harder, be curious why you want to give up when you're not going to die if you do the thing, just do the work, right? Just do the work. So that space of inquiry absolutely changed my life. It allowed me the space to realize that I can make things happen in my life by being a yes for certain things, but being very clear on what I am a no for. Because if you're going to be a yes, you have to be clear on what you're a no for. And these are some of the principles of Baptiste yoga. But I'm going to speak to the specifics, just the general specifics of just yoga in general. I'm big on science. I like things to be tested and proven out with control groups, and I like scientific studies a lot. So I did some digging because, I mean, I know that it's changed my life, but I want to know that it's been tested. Like, I want to know why. So I've been curious. So I gathered some data on some studies that have been done about meditation and yoga, and I'm going to talk a little bit about different ways that you can do things, whether they be passive things that you can do that don't involve moving your body, or things that require activity, which would be yoga to get that space. So I'm going to start off with some meditation studies, and I'm just using pictures because when slides are up, people read slides. So in this study, and I have printed out copies of the studies at my booth, the one that says Yoga Curious. I printed out the scientific studies, so if you want to see them yourself, you can Google the titles later. I'm going to share the slide deck on SlideNet or something like that when I'm done. In this study by the Journal of Psychosomatic Medicine, the researchers measured brain electrical activity. So they did EEGs on people that were part of a meditation group. They did EEGs before, immediately after, and then 4 months after an 8-week mindfulness meditation class was given. There were 25 subjects in the mindfulness meditation group. There were 16 subjects in the control group, meaning that they were not part of the teaching, they're not part of the training. At the end of the 8-week program, both groups got a flu vaccine. The EEG study showed significant increases in left-sided anterior activation in the EEG in a region of the brain that's associated with positive effect, meaning the brain, the hippocampus area of your brain. That was seen in the group of the meditators versus the non-meditators. There were also significant increases in antibody titers to the flu vaccine in the meditator group versus the non-meditator group, and that shows that the meditation group had a stronger immune response to the flu vaccine, which is pretty major, and that means you're going to be more resistant to sickness if you incorporate meditation into your daily life. I was like, whoa. That's a study right there. In this study, components of mindfulness meditation were broken out into individual actions with supported scientific studies being referenced. So this is like a compendium of multiple studies where they gathered together different mechanism actions through which mindfulness works. They did information gathering on attention regulation, and attention regulation is just as simple as focusing your attention on your breath, focusing on the single point of light of a candle, a single word mantra, multiple phrase mantra, but something that gets you into the now, here moment and not into tomorrow, next week, or yesterday, or 10 years ago. Gets you into the right now, right here. And you see improvements in your concentration, your ability to stay on task, your ability to focus as a result of this separating yourself from letting your thoughts run you. Body awareness, noticing your body sensations, like actually sitting in your body and noticing how your feet feel, where are your elbows, like how, and that takes you into the now, here moment instead of then or the unknown. Emotional regulation, this was an interesting one. Through reappraisal, which reappraisal is a word that means changing the trajectory of your emotional response by reinterpreting the meaning of the emotional stimulus. And that's a really long way of saying somebody did a thing and you are aware that you made up a story about the thing that they did. And that it's your story that you're living with is the fact, when that's not, that's just your story that you made up. Human beings are huge storytellers. We look for meaning and we need to fill in gaps so that things make sense to us, and we're not even aware that we do it. Exposure, extinction, and reconsolidation, noticing your fears, extinguishing conditioned fear by enhancing the structural and functional integrity of the brain network involved in safety signaling. So all of these studies point to the area of the hippocampus as being developed through meditation, and the amygdala, which is our area that runs the fight or flight, is decreased. So the more mindful we are, the more meditative we are, our hippocampus grows and gets stronger. It's like we're working out the muscle of our hippocampus and thereby pointing our attention towards that and reducing our fight or flight response. This study was an experiment to determine the effects of meditation on multitasking behavior of knowledge workers. Big words for human resources employees, people that have to process lots of data in, lots of data out, keep things flowing, multiple calendars. They were put into a mindfulness meditation course. 3 groups of 12 to 15 people were tested. One group took part in an 8-week meditation course. The second group waited for that 8 weeks and did nothing. And then the third group only took part in training on body relaxation, not meditation. Out of all of the participants, only the group that was trained in meditation stayed on tasks longer, made fewer task switches, there was less multitasking, less jumping back and forth, and reported less negative emotion after work as compared to the other 2 groups. So not only did it help them function in their job, but they also were happier after work because of the mindfulness meditation course they had taken part in. Okay. This was an 8-week Harvard study. This was just recently cited in USA Today. There were lots of people that were reporting on this Harvard study that was held at the Massachusetts General Hospital. 2 groups of healthy adults with high levels of stress were randomly assigned, I love that word random, randomly assigned into either a relaxation response program or a mindfulness program. The relaxation response course focuses on bringing about or cultivating a physiologic state of deep rest, which is the opposite of our fight or flight. The other course was mindfulness-based stress reduction. Also, you can see it online. It's referenced as MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction. It's an official course which emphasizes a non-judgmental attitude called mindfulness as the key to stress reduction. So both courses are based upon meditation and both decrease the stress levels of the participants, but the mindfulness-based stress reduction participants had further improvements in self-compassion and rumination. And rumination means when you sit and you're introspective and you think about something deeply and you consider the different options and you think about it, you ruminate on it for a while, you let it simmer. 27 minutes per day were found to show an increase in gray matter in the hippocampus and decreased gray matter in the amygdala. And the hippocampus, again, is the self-awareness, the compassion and introspection part of our brain, and the amygdala is the part of our brain that we use when we get anxious or stressed. Okay, so how do we link the mind to the body? The passive ways that we can link the mind to the body are things like meditation, relaxation response, where you just sit and notice your body's sensations. Mindfulness can be done in multiple different ways. You can put mindfulness into play in a myriad of ways that I'll get into, and breath regulation. None of these involve physical activity, having to do something. They don't involve sweating. So meditation can be as simple as noticing your breath, noticing how your ribs feel when you breathe in, notice how they feel when you breathe out, just getting in tune with that sensation, because it happens automatically. We're glad that it does happen automatically, but you don't really notice it. You don't pay attention to it a lot. And just sitting for even just a few moments and just noticing how it feels to breathe and be grateful that we are alive can go a long way to making your outlook more positive. You can look at the single point of light of a candle flame if you need something visual to meditate on. You can use, like I said, a word or a mantra, because repeating that sound, that phrase, whatever it be, it could be applesauce, vinegar, bubble gum. It could be anything, but as you're repeating it, you are not thinking about what has happened or what might happen. You are staying in the now, and you are separating yourself from the thoughts running your life. You could hold your hands in a certain way. Some people like a tactile reminder to get into the now and here, and that could be a mudra. There's lots of different words that mean a way of holding your hands. And it just could be an anchor to the physicality of the now here, because you are doing something specific with your hands. There's also a big power in having intention for doing a thing a certain way. Have the ritualistic aspect to setting up, like when you prepare the kitchen to cook, when you prepare the bath to take a bath, when you prepare to like go wash the car, when you are mindful about what you are doing, there's a lot of power in that. So the relaxation response is a non-secular version of the transcendental meditation for Westerners, which would be us. And it's just a series of phrases that you use to get into tune with your body. Sit quietly in a comfortable position, close your eyes, deeply relax all your muscles, beginning at your feet and progressing up to your face. Breathe through your nose, become aware of your breath, continue for 10 to 20 minutes, and don't worry if you're doing it right. So mindfulness practices can be put into play with things like just noticing how the sun looks, noticing the shadows, noticing birds. You can put noticing into play with how you eat. Are you mindful of the food that you're eating? Are you mindful of how you are eating it? Are you mindful of everything? Like just noticing the sounds around you. Like not letting them run your life as like an annoyance or a distraction, but just letting them come and go, and like not having an attachment to control. That can be mindfulness right there. Forest bathing is also another thing that's come into written texts now. It's a fancy way of getting out in nature and being out in trees and grass, and there's a lot of benefit to being out in greenery. Not necessarily just beach or stuff, but like being out where things are green does a lot for the mind to calm and create a sense of well-being. So I have some animated GIFs that I have collected. This is the portion about breathing techniques. Breathing techniques you can put into action anytime, because it doesn't require any kind of movement. It just requires you to get in touch with how you are breathing. Breathing in with a 4-count breath or a 5-count breath reduces your blood pressure, reduces your I can't remember the word for it. It slows down your breath, lowers your blood pressure, reduces your heart rate, and reduces anxiety. Respiratory research shows that a reduced breathing rate of around 5 to 6 breaths per minute for an average adult can lead to a reduction in activation of the sympathetic nervous system. And the sympathetic nervous system is the one that's our fight or flight. And with a simple thing like having a visual to guide your breath, it's like you're not even conscious that you're syncing your breath with the movement of this animated GIF. And before you know it, you feel better because you've just lowered your blood pressure without doing anything other than paying attention to how you're breathing. So there's also breathe in for a count of 4, hold for a couple of counts at the top, and then letting your breath go, but in a controlled manner, and breathing out for longer than you breathe in is also good. And yeah, these are great animated GIFs. You can just do a Google image search for 4-count breath, and that's how I found these, and they're good to have. You can keep them on your phone or what have you, or you can just like drop in and be like, I'm going to 4-count breath. I'm going to count in for 4 and breathe out for 6. There's also belly breathing, like actually like putting your hands on your belly and breathing into your abdomen, like letting your abdomen expand when you breathe in. That is also another tactile way to get into your breath. Put your hands on your ribs and really feel how your lungs expand, and notice, are you taking just shallow chest breaths? Are you really breathing into like your full lung capacity? Okay. So active mind-body interventions require you to do something like physical, like move, like sweat. It can be things like Tai Chi. It could be things like Qigong. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but I think I am. But since I'm a yogi, I'm going to dive into the benefits that I've seen and that I've studied for a yoga practice. Yoga practice, it doesn't require you, but you are asked to control your breathing. You are asked to become aware of your breath and get in tune with how your breath is happening in your body. Yoga increases your body's proprioception skills, and proprioception is a really big word that means knowing where your body is in space at any given time, meaning like knowing your left from your right, or if your eyes are closed, like knowing your left pinky toe from your right pinky toe, understanding that when I say, internally rotate your thighs, that you know what that means in your body because you are used to moving based upon verbal cues. So you get really good with your balance because it's a skill that you develop, proprioception. You have a lot of mind-body awareness as a result of coming to your mat, of doing a yoga practice. You have improved body image. You have a satisfaction and a gratitude for the body that you have and not what you want it to be or what you think it should be. You get really grounded in being grateful for what you are able to do from a day-to-day basis. And as a result of that, you have improved self-esteem. Let's see here. Prevents osteoporosis. This is another big one. This was a study that I found that I'll get into a little further, but yoga can definitely help with osteoporosis. And it reduces stress and reduces anxiety. So the Ujjayi breath, the yogic breath that maybe you've been to a yoga class and you hear people breathing really loud and you're like, what is up with that? Well, the Ujjayi breath is a breath where you breathe in deeply through your nose and you breathe out. You slightly constrict the back of your throat and you exhale through your nose. And it's an audible, loud breath. It sounds like you're trying to be Darth Vader or you're trying to fog up a mirror. And that is an audible reminder to come into the now here. And I often cue students to breathe for your neighbor. Breathe for your neighbor so that you are giving them an audible cue to be here on the mat instead of off in your mind. Be here on the mat. And we become, as a yogi, we become a community of people moving and breathing. And that Ujjayi breath builds an internal heat. That constriction, that it builds an internal heat, and I liken that heat to like building your own fire. And you can build that fire to like burn things off, and I use that metaphorically, like get rid of the crap that you have in your mind that you're like hanging on to. You can burn that off by getting in touch with your Ujjayi breath, sweating, and you're creating space for something new. You're creating space in your body and your mind, whether it be burning calories, you're creating space for something new. You are burning off like the old stuff that you've been thinking about for far too long and letting it go and getting complete with whatever the thing was. And that happens through your breath, being mindful, being in the moment right here and right now. So I found this little animated GIF of the breath in and the magic and the breath out, and I edited it a little bit because I wanted it to be Darth Vader. Let's see here. There was a study done about nostril breathing, and the nostril-centric breath of the Ujjayi pranayama, which is the big Sanskrit word for breath practice, pranayama, increases nitric oxide levels in the sinus cavities. And scientific studies show that elevated nitric oxide levels are related to increased immune systems, lowered blood pressure, and useful in the management of mild asthma symptoms. So there's Ujjayi breath that increases your nitric oxide levels, humming for 60 seconds or longer, humming, singing, all of those increase the nitric oxide levels in your sinuses, which helps you ward off infection. It's like they did a controlled double-blind study, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. So yoga improves mind-body awareness through the practice of noticing your body's sensations. The asana practice of yoga improves your proprioception skills, and the introspective noticing practice improves the skill of interoception. Interoception is where we understand and feel what's going on inside the body. Body image and self-esteem are feelings, thoughts, and behaviors which are dependent upon mood and emotions. And becoming more in tune with how the body feels can help reappraisal of the stimulus. Improving your self-esteem through yoga. We learn skills as we practice yoga on our mats that we can apply to our lives to self-soothe. So the asana practice is a series of small steps which can cultivate gratitude for the body as it is, not as we imagine it to be. And that improvements in self-esteem, the increased mindfulness as we apply it to food and drink can help us make more healthy decisions about the food and the drink that we put into our body. Maybe deciding to not have the first beer or the second beer or the third beer or the cocktail or whatever. Just being mindful, or like making a conscious decision like, yes, I know that I'm gonna regret this in the morning when I go to yoga, that I should not have had the third beer, but I'm gonna have it anyways, and just be aware with it. Having an awareness of what you are doing and what the outcome is, because be real here. Same thing goes for food. Like, yes, I know that that thing is not necessarily healthy, it's not got any nutrition in it, but I'm going to eat it anyway, and I'm aware that this is the reality. Yeah. So yoga can increase self-esteem, mind-body awareness. You can feel good in your own skin. You find a support group, like a support group of being human. The yoga studio is a community where you are sharing this experience of getting on your mat, and maybe clothing that you don't feel comfortable in or do feel, whatever your situation is, you are part of a community when you go to a yoga studio. You see the same faces, and it's a wonderful place to be safe and to share in the practice of being mindful and being human with other people, because that's what it's all about, is people. So this is a list of positive outcomes of a yoga practice. It's foundational, fundamental, simple, and clear. I wanted to speak specifically about this study that I found out about osteoporosis. So as we age, the structure of our bones is diminished, either just by aging or loss of calcium. There was a study that was done that says 90 minutes per week of weight-bearing exercises like yoga can prevent the onset of osteoporosis. So poses like tree pose, just tree where you're balancing on one foot, triangle pose where you've got 2 feet on the ground, extended side angle, bridge, anything where you're doing weight bearing of any kind on your bones. That kind of weight bearing activity increases your body's bone growth. It's pretty major. So yoga is also shown to reduce stress and anxiety. It can reduce depression. It increases your serotonin levels, decreases your levels of cortisol. Cortisol is your stress enzymes. And improvements are also seen in cardiorespiratory performance, as well as improving insomnia symptoms. In short, yoga is for everybody. It's not a religion. It's not what a lot of people, like, there's a whole bunch of people writing stuff and saying stuff about like what yoga is. Yoga is anything that you want it to be. Like yoga at a brewery, if you're getting people to a yoga mat in their space of comfort at a brewery, and they have that 60 minutes to get in touch with their hands and their feet and be in the now, then I'm all for it. But there are some people that will tell you that that's not yoga. And like, I can't change that I'm a white woman, but it is what it is. But there are huge benefits that can be gotten from a yoga practice, whatever that yoga practice is, whether it's just you being at home, you being out in nature. There are huge benefits. First responders are finding ways to become more resilient, to deal with their PTSD, to deal with the stress of their jobs. There are yoga teachers that are doing outreach classes into firefighters, paramedics, all of our first responders, military and ex-military members. There's wounded warrior projects and whatnot. where we're bringing yoga into the military is helping them become more resilient, reduce PTSD, anxiety, depression, all of the human condition. Some jobs, some lines of career have much more of a need for yoga than others, but everybody could benefit from a yoga practice. There are also outreach projects going into prisons to give people in prison anger management skills, that meditative mindfulness that's part of a yoga practice, reaching out to people that are incarcerated and giving them higher self-esteem, realizing that they can make positive, actionable life choices, that you are responsible for your situation and you can make it different. And you can learn that from a yoga practice. At-risk women and children are also part of outreach programs so that they can build self-esteem, they can establish community, they can have a foundational support group that is positive and contributes towards their future well-being. The Africa Yoga Project is a project that spun off from the type of yoga that I practice, the Baptiste yoga. Baptiste yoga, I can tell you more about it over at the booth, but the Africa Yoga Project is part of the training that we go through. We are called to be up to something bigger than yourself. Give back in whatever way you can, and one of the yogis was her brainchild to create the Africa Yoga Project. She was vacationing in Nairobi and doing handstands, and the local kids were really intrigued like what she was doing, so she started to interact with, they don't speak the same language, but they speak body, like you could speak with your body. So she decided to create the Africa Yoga Project, which is based out of Nairobi, Kenya. And her name is Paige Ellenson, and last year she won the Muhammad Ali Humanitarian Award 2018. It's pretty major because the Africa Yoga Project is in 19 different countries throughout Africa, and it has trained well over 300 people to become yoga teachers, which you don't really need anything. You don't need a whole lot to become a yoga teacher. So they are now able to earn money to support their husbands, wives, kids, aunts, uncles. They have gainful employment because in Nairobi, the unemployment's at like 70%. So the Africa Yoga Project has created a way to create hope and a future and a financial income for people that would have not had any other way to move forward, but given them hope. So that's a huge pet project that I'm a sponsor of. You've also seen probably stuff in the news about professional sports players also bringing yoga into the practice, not just for the flexibility benefits, the bouncing back from the injuries on the field, but it's also that reduction in stress levels when they're out there playing on the field, the mindfulness, the non-reactionary. When the other team tries to get you to break and get into a fight or whatever, you can be detached from that stimulus and be aware that you have control over your reactions. So, in brief, yoga is for everybody. Doesn't matter if your practice is at home, if it's in a studio, is it hot, is it super hot, is it outdoor, is it on a stand-up paddleboard? Getting in touch with your body, moving your body, and becoming aware of your breath goes a long way to having you lead a long, wonderful, healthy life. Thank you for your time.